Hello friends, in today's video we are going to discuss about deadlock topic. This topic is very easy, but then students find it really confusing and they just leave this topic is also important in the view of your entrance exams or gate exam or any competitive exam. These questions usually appear from the deadlock topic, and mostly the theoretical questions appear. So we'll just go through the basics of deadlock today in an easy way. First of all, in a multi-programming system, there are number of processes which compete for a limited number of resources available, and if a resource is not available at that instance, then the process has to wait for the resource, and the process enters into something called as a waiting state. So if a process is unable to change its waiting state indefinitely, that means it is not able to receive the resource it desires for, it is held by another waiting process, then the system is said to be in deadlock. Just because the resource is with some other process and the current process is not able to get it, it has to wait indefinitely. So that's when a deadlock appears. So next is system model. Now when you have a system model, we have three things in it, that is either a request, use, or a release. So when I say a request, every process will request for the resource. Use, that is once it gets the resource, it will use the resource, and finally after using it, it will release the process, or it will free the resource after its use. So basically there are three things: request, use, and release. Now there are certain specific conditions for the deadlock to occur. So we'll just go through the conditions. That is, first one is mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait. So if a deadlock has to occur, these four conditions has to be present. So we'll just see in detail what is mutual exclusion. A resource should be used by a single process at a time, and it remains with it using process in non-shareable mode. That means we should make sure that the resource is used by a single process only at a time, and it's not shared by any other process. That is called as mutual exclusion. The second one is hold and wait. A process holds minimum one resource and waits to obtain remaining needed resources that are at present being held by other processes. We are making sure that the process is holding whatever resource it is getting and then waiting for the other resources. It's not like once it gets all the resources, it starts. No, even if it is getting one resource at a time, it will just take that resource, hold it with itself, and wait for the other resources that it requires. The third condition is no preemption. That means the preemption of the resource will not be done. Although the process with a higher priority comes for execution or request for the resource, the preemption is not allowed. So that is what is no preemption. The process holding the resource releases it on its own after completion of its task. So before that, the process is not allowed to release any of the resources, although it is not using it. And the fourth condition is circular wait. So here the collection of waiting processes, say P0, P1 and Pn, exist such that P0 is waiting for a resource that is held by P1. P1 is waiting for a resource which is held by P2, and so on. Pn minus 1 is waiting for a resource held by Pn, and ultimately Pn is waiting for a resource held by P0. So back to first one. So since it forms a circle, we call it as a circular wait. So if this condition occurs, then there will be definitely indefinite waiting and it will lead to a deadlock. So the necessary conditions, this is a usually asked question, the necessary conditions for deadlock. So it's mutual exclusion, hold and wait, no preemption, and circular wait. The next one that we have here is the resource allocation graph. In resource allocation graph, what it is actually. So whenever the resources are allocated to any process, we can represent them using a resource allocation graph. So basically a resource allocation graph is a directed graph. Directed graph, when I say, that means there will be arrows on the edges, so it is showing the direction of the edges. Second, in this graph, set of vertices V is partitioned into two different types of nodes. That is, there could be either active processes or that could be resource types. So when I say active processes, they are represented, say, with P1, P2 till Pn, and when I say resource types, it is represented as R1, R2 till Rn. If there is any edge with direction from process P to resource R, then that means P has made request resource R and it is waiting for it. We will just see it with a graph that I have drawn here. So you can see here, if there is any edge with the direction from process P to resource R, so that means P1 is having a edge which is directing towards resource R1, then it means that P has made a request for instance R and it is waiting for it. That means P1 is waiting for resource R1 and P1 has made a request for resource R1 and it is waiting for it. If the edge is from resource R to process P, it means resource R is allocated to process P. That is, there is a edge from resource R1 to P2. If you can see here, that means P2 is holding resource R1. And the circular nodes represents processes and square represents resources. So here circular nodes, you can see these are your processes and the rectangle or square are your resources. So that's your resource allocation graph which we use to represent the process resources function. The next topic that we have here is deadlock prevention. Now we have already seen the necessary conditions for the deadlock to occur. So if we don't want the deadlock or if we want to prevent the deadlock to happen, what are the conditions that we need to see? So first of all, deadlock prevention can be applied when deadlock can cause a huge problem, especially if you take an example of aircrafts. You cannot just keep the pilot waiting for any resources that it requires. It can lead to a disastrous outcome. So in such scenarios, that's just an example, we can prevent the deadlocks. And how do we prevent them? So for the first condition that we had seen for the deadlock to occur was mutual exclusion. So if there is no mutual exclusion, no deadlock. So first condition, you can see here, to remove the mutual exclusion we need to make resources shareable. So what was mutual exclusion? Mutual exclusion was the resources are not shareable. So we need to make the resources shareable so that the deadlock can be prevented. One resource can be shared by multiple processes. The second condition that we have here is hold and wait. If you remember, the second condition for deadlock to occur was hold and wait. So we have to make sure that hold and wait condition is not true. So we have further approaches to this, how it can be taken care of. So first one is conservative approach. So in conservative approach, a process is allowed to start execution if and only if it has acquired all resources. So if you remember, what is hold and wait? Hold and wait was a process was allowed to hold a resource and wait until it gets the other resources. But conservative approach here tells you that process is allowed to start the execution only if and only if it has acquired all the resources. Right, so it's not allowed to hold. Second one is do not hold. That means the process will acquire only desired resources, but before making any fresh request, you must release all the resources that it currently holds. So here that means it will require only it will acquire only the desired resources, but before making any fresh request, it has to release all the resources that it currently holds. So for example, if process wants R1 till R10, these are the resources that a particular process wants, and it has R1 to R4 resources with it, then it should use that R1 to R4 first and then request for R5 to R10, but before that it should release the previous R1 to R4 resources. I repeat again, if a process wants R1 to R10 resources and it has R1 to R4, it is having some resources out of that, but it is wanting some of the resources. So rather than holding r1 to r4, it will start the execution with r1 and r4, release r1 to r4, and then request for r5 to r10 resources. The third condition here is wait timeout. That means there will be limit of time that will be fixed onto how much time wait holding that resources, after which the process must release. That's a good way. Rather than keeping the process waiting, we can fix the limit for the process to wait. The third condition was no preemption. So the opposite of no preemption, if we want to prevent deadlock, then it should be a forceful preemption. So that's what we have written here, forceful preemption. So it allows the processes to forcefully preempt the resource holding by other processes. It is basically used by the higher priority processes. So it can be used, that's what I've written here. And processes which are in waiting state must be selected as victim instead of process in running state. So just for your clarification, I'll just tell you that means you can preempt the process which is already in the waiting state. So since we are preempting, we have to preempt one of the processes, then why do we choose a process which is already running? So better choose a process that is already waiting, so that will not have much effect. So that's what it means. And the last condition here is circular wait. So circular wait, if we want to remove circular wait, then what you need to do is just give a natural number to every resource. That is the first thing. Secondly, allow every process to either only in increasing or decreasing order of resource numbers. That means if p1 r1 and wanting r1 and r2, then the sequence in which it is requesting, it's given as r1 and r2, and p2 is also wanting r2 and r1, and the sequence in which it is requesting is also r2 and r1. So this will cause a circular wait. So if you want to avoid a circular wait here, make sure that p2 is requesting r1 first and then r2, or both the processes. Now this is an increasing order which has been followed here. If or else you can also follow a decreasing order. There should be a standard decision that should be made, that what is the order that is going to be followed to prevent the circular wait. So suppose a process requires some middle number. You will be having a doubts in this. So suppose let's say a process requires some middle number resource in between. That is, the process requires say r1, r5 and r9. So there is no sequence, as in it's in sequence but it's not continuous. So r1, r5 and r9 are the requests, and suddenly it requires r7. So it has already requested and it requires r7. Then it should release all the resources it has which it needs to access. That means r1, r5 and r9 is the one that it has already requested, and r7 is the new request that it wants. So if you go by the increasing order, then before requesting r7, it has to release r1 and r5, okay, and then only request for r7 and r9. So that's all about the circular wait. I hope you have understood whatever we have done in today's video. Please do subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching.